Hey guys, it is Yishan here. Today I have another first place giant card deck profile with another good friend of mine. I will let him introduce himself. So if you would like to state your name and what you played and anything else you would like to add,
Oh,
go ahead, go ahead.
hello, my name is Darren Lee. I played Shaddoll in Invoked Dogmatika. I really like Invoked, that's why I played it. And yeah,
Hmm.
I got first place at the Giant card. It was a big surprise
Very
for me
nice, very
too.
nice. Now you're here. Now you're here on the. Listen, I am not a fan of Invoked, but I also didn't get first place on the giant card. So, okay. Well, if you want to just get it started with a deck, then let's take a look at it.
Let's start with the basics. We have a three Alistair the Invoker. You always play three of him. There's like no reason not to. Normal summon, search,
Hmm.
invocation. Then
Hmm.
moving on, we have one copy of Ecclesia, one copy of Fleur. The reasoning is because you don't really want to draw it. You don't really care for it. If you draw it, it is sometimes nice though. There was a game where I specialed Fleur or attacked with it to beat over a Shen and then linked for an Anaconda and used the Anaconda effect. Because the only things that lock you in this deck are if you search with Ecclesia and if you activate Nadir Servant. Nothing else, and Punishment. Nothing else locks you. So Ecclesia and Fleur can just special themselves for free, and you can just link them for Anaconda. Pretty good cards.
True. True.
For
Okay.
Ecclesia, I didn't really search Punishment. I just searched Fleur because I didn't like locking myself. But having Punishment as an option was nice.
Okay. Okay.
Moving on, we have one Aerial. I was gonna cut it to two, but this card is nuts. Playing two of it is, I think, might be correct. In the future, I might try builds with two, but at the moment, it was just one. Crowing three out of grave hurts. I played against a Tri Brigade player where he fractal dumped all three, he normaled his monster, and instead of making wind, I just crowed three out of his grave and he couldn't play anymore. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
pretty annoying.
you don't need
Yeah.
window, you got this. But if they have the revolt, it does hurt a lot.
Right. Right.
Yeah. And then, well, this card also has a flip effect, which does actually come up. I'll explain with Resh when we get there. But when you flip it, it targets a banished Shaddoll and special summons it back and face up or face down. You can bring back a Winda if you run out of all your copies of Winda. You can do some cheeky stuff like bring it back, and your opponent won't expect it to be coming back. In the late game,
Hmm.
um, how I like to play this deck is I like to deprive my opponent of resources. It's not like Striker where you keep generating. I think of it like the other way around where you just take all the resources and you just keep flipping Shaddolls in the late game and Alistair just carries you after a certain point. Because you get a one card normal summon invoked monster every turn. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
it was
True.
pretty good.
True.
Two Wendy, you want to draw it, but you don't want to draw more than one. It's iffy.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to fuse with her if she's in your hand. Uh, both her effects are about the same. You special them out of the deck. If you flip her, you can special Shaddoll face up, face down. If you send her, you set one from your deck. Pretty good.
Hmm.
Usually I set Dragon, but if it's if it's a slow game and I know I need a trap or I need a poly spell, I'll set a Hedgehog and flip it. A lot of decks don't really
Okay.
have mass removal right now. Nothing makes crazy amounts of negates. Like Tri Brigade only has like couple removal. Like they get one non-targeting banish. Everything else is just pops or they have to attack you. Yeah. So like
Yep.
access
Yep.
code, popping all your Shaddolls, you get all their effects.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then we got Beast. Beast is good. Draws you one. Sometimes I set it off. If I have a really good hand, I'll set it off Wendy. Like it just sits there until your next turn because they have to deal with it. Like if they banish it off Charade, they just use your Shreg banish on your Beast. If not, and they like attacked it, you flipped it, you drew two, you discarded one. You got to cycle your hand, and if you discard a card, you trigger the Shaddoll effect, and it just draws one set. Pretty good card. One
Hmm.
dragon, just for back removal. This is how I out really annoying stuff like Imperial Order. This is the MVP
Yep.
sometimes. Outs the back row. This card by itself gives you the best Tri Brigade matchup. If you open Meltdown Shaddoll Fusion, Tri Brigade board looks like Swiss cheese. Then we have one Hedgehog, the flip effect, add Shaddoll spell or trap. Really important. It's spell or trap, so you can get Rush Shaddoll and Schism with this card. Some of my
Yes.
opponents didn't
Yes.
know that, so when I added Schism, they're like, wait, you can do that? I'm like, yeah. The
Uh
send
huh.
effect isn't really the best. Sometimes you want it, sometimes you don't really care for it, and you just leave it in the deck. It's basically just another Shaddoll name to your hand, and if you want to keep polying. If I try to OTK, I do send this to get an extra Shaddoll name for poly. And then Squamata is pretty self-explanatory. If you flip, it just pops. It just tags out for any Shaddoll name you need. This is the weird tech. I like Genius a lot. Genius, when it's... I've never used the flip effect. I'll just start with that. And when it's sent, you target a card on the board, and neither player can activate that card's effects. So sometimes I'll send Genius, I'll target a Tri-Brigade, and they cannot use that Tri-Brigade's effects that turn. It's kind of like a Veiler in a way.
Yeah.
That would be the
like
lineup for monsters. I think this is the perfect lineup. Maybe one more aerial. Then we have 3 Phantasme. This card, actually, I think is the MVP. Against every deck, even if they don't link summon, this card by itself does do something. It is a dark, so you can poly with it for Winda. Like in some really jank hands, I'll poly it out of my hand going first. I'll just like sit on a Winda and pass. Like if I open like Squamata, Phantasme, I'll just poly with both for Winda, and then I'll go Squamata, send Schism, and if they out the Winda, I'll just add the Schism back to my hand. And it slows them down enough where I can just start gaining my own resources from there. 2 Droll. I originally got a list from someone, and this is where I based it off, but I edited it a bit. It was 3 Droll originally, but at the same time, I'm like, Droll's very iffy. It's good in this deck, but I wanted to have a Duster, so I took out a Droll, because I don't like losing the Mystic Mine. Droll has synergy with this deck. If you draw a Shaddoll monster and a Poly, not Invocation, because that only works with hand, but if you draw a Droll, a Shaddoll monster, and like El Shaddoll, you can normal Droll and turn it into Selene, because it is a level 4 lower spellcaster, which gives you access to light.
Okay.
If you get, like, if I brick with this deck, as long as I can get into Construct, I can keep playing. Then we have 3 Ash, very staple hand trap, just good against everything. No need to explain it. Then we have probably the best card of this entire deck, Magical Meltdown. Everyone knows what it does. No one likes it. Activation, add Alistair.
It also has that second effect, which is super annoying sometimes. The both that you can't respond. There's too many tricks with it, you know?
Yeah. There is really niche things. A lot of people don't know this, but if you poly as Chainlink 2, you do not get the can't respond effect. The poly has to be Chainlink 1 for the can't respond effect to work.
Right, it's basically like that. The summon has already happened.
Yes.
So like the window to they would have already missed the window to respond to the summon because of that. It was Chainlink 2.
Yeah.
So like the bottomlesses and the torrentials wouldn't have been able to work on it. But yeah. Okay. So that's good to know.
A lot of people don't know that. It's really good to know. It sometimes comes up in this deck, but yeah. If you open Meltdown plus Shaddoll Fusion, it breaks the entire Tri-Brigade board by itself, assuming they just made their board. So like, one of my opponents had Appaloosa, the Appaloosa and the set, right? And I think like Arrays Vulgar, something. I went activate Magical Meltdown, and then I went Shaddoll Fusion, and he didn't have Ash. I specialed App Clone, I was set Dragon, and I App Clone negated Appaloosa, and Dragon just popped his spell and trap, and you literally cannot do anything about it. Your entire board is gone. Because if you chain the Revolt to the Shaddoll Fusion you summon, you don't get any of those effects. It's all you get is the Charade. You don't. Yeah. Then we have Nadir Servant. Card's nuts.
Yep.
Card is realistically, you're just cycling. That's what I see it as. I see it as basically just a way to get into Schism. So
plus a negate as well.
Yeah.
So
just use it to extend. It helps the deck a lot, but I wouldn't say it's what carries the deck. But like, there's some really cheeky plays with this deck. Most of the time, you're just trying your best to get into the Shaddoll engine, because once you get into it, if you kill them before you run out of Shaddolls, you're basically golden. But once you start running out, you'll notice it. Shaddoll Fusion, hard ones per turn, can be ashed. If you resolve this, you win most of the time.
Yeah, this card is something. Yeah.
Then we have El Shaddoll Fusion. I played this because there's some really cheeky plays with it. Like, you can dump it with if you have the read that they have a way to stop a schism, like they have a cosmic for the schism, you'll get El Shaddoll Fusion instead because it can't stop this. You're going to get the window if you have this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good card. Quick play spell helps you OTK a lot too.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have 2 Invocation. Card's amazing. Everyone knows what it does. Just banish. Um, this card has some really fun applications. I like this card a lot because sometimes you normal summon Alistair. If you have Wendy in hand, I won't even make Makaba. Like if your only plays are Alistair and a Wendy, normal Alistair get Invocation Link for Celine. Activate Invocation. You can summon Raijin by sending Wendy and the Alistair. Wendy will set a card, and you can still make Winda. But sometimes I'll just set a beast and I'll just save it for next turn. And my
Mm-hmm.
board looks jank, but I've won those games. So, or you can just hard
Interesting.
link for Anaconda, and the Anaconda sends Shaddoll Fusion, fuse with your Shaddoll that you set off Wendy for Winda. But I don't really like that play. Too greedy for me.
Okay.
Yeah. Then we have Super Poly. A lot of people like to call this Super Poly deck. Kind of is. I think like more than half the extra deck you can Super Poly people with.
Mm-hmm.
Just Super Poly targets. This card helps you unbrick. If you open a Shaddoll name and you set a Super Poly with a discard, if they give you a light or a dark, you can still make Winda and you can still keep playing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like those really jank hands. Like sometimes I'll like, oh, I drew like Squamata and Super Poly and the rest is unplayable. I'll set the Squamata, set the Super Poly, and like they give me a light. I will keep playing if you can't OTK me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the rest of this deck, you either drew hand traps or the Duster. Well, the Duster's still nice, or like other random combo pieces because this deck randomly combos with itself. So like the other stuff, if you can't use it now, you'll be able to use it later. Like there's been games where the Shaddoll pieces just sit in my hand until later. And then we
Yeah.
have
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this card is annoying.
it is
I have to
really
say.
annoying. Mr. Super
Yeah.
Polygod, a good card. We have one Duster. It's Harpy's Feather Duster. I only played this because I don't like losing to Mystic Mine. In the
Mm-hmm.
finals against
Mm-hmm.
Virtual World, my opponent got mad that I had the Duster and 43 cards in a going first deck, and I'm like, shoutouts to Bailey. Thank you, Bailey, for making me so paranoid of Mystic Mine. This literally won me the giant card. My hand was so jank that game, but I was like, thank God I have a Duster. Because he had Chuchi and another back row. I think it was an Imperm. I Dustered, and
Mm.
then I El Shaddoll Fusion and hard polyed. And then I special
Yeah.
Fleur to beat over his Shen, and then made Anaconda, and then made Winda. Or I didn't make
Mm-hmm.
Winda. No. I Anaconda summoned Construct, set Aerial, and crowed the Qinglong and Shen out of his grave so he didn't have any follow-up plays.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. MVP. One called by the grave. If you have this for the Ash and Shaddoll fusion, it feels so good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Terraforming, you just want to get into your broken card.
Yep.
One punishment. This card technically doubles as any Shaddoll effect, or you can get an extra pop.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. It's 50-50. Sometimes this wins me games, sometimes it doesn't. If you were to cut any card in this list, I think I would gravitate towards the punishment first. You can play without it.
Okay. Okay.
Then we have Rush Shaddoll Incarnation. You can loop this card infinitely with a construct. It's
Yeah, so you're a fan of this one because sometimes people think this could like a brick a little bit.
it is a brick. I love this card. It's won me games. When I've drawn it, I've never been like, I drew this. This is unplayable.
Mm-hmm.
So this card, well, it has 2 main effects. The activated effect is the reborn a Shaddoll, face up or face down defense, and the graveyard effect is a banish it and a Shaddoll to flip a Shaddoll.
Mm-hmm.
With this, you can flip Shaddolls during your opponent's turn because it's a trap, so it's a quick effect. So it turns Shaddolls like Squamata into quick effect destroy a monster if you like end on jank boards. But
Mm-hmm.
some of the combos are like if you open Alistair and 2 Shaddoll names, one of them being maybe light or like a Shaddoll fusion, you can create some really stupid boards. Like you can end on like double Winda a Mechaba and like
Mm-hmm.
a Shaddoll fusion set with this card. Because you just
Mm-hmm.
flip the Aerial and Aerial will bring you banish this you banish Construct, you flip Aerial, and Aerial brings back Construct. And Construct is broken, not once per turn, not on Special Summon either.
Not on
Or
Fusion Summon.
not on Fusion
Yeah.
Summon either. So you just
Yeah,
Foolish
this card is
again,
annoying.
and you just Link. And then
Mm-hmm.
Construct triggers,
Mm-hmm.
and you just get the card back.
Mm-hmm.
And then probably the best card of this entire deck, unironically, Shaddoll Schism.
Yeah, this card's insane.
This
This
card
card is so annoying.
If they don't out it, I think every turn I've had it up 2 turns or more, I've won. This card just solos every deck. If you start it and it keeps going, what do they do? The only downside is you can't attack directly with the monster you summon off this. So
Yeah, but still, I mean,
still,
the value is crazy.
value. This is the true value. It hurts when this gets cosmic, but you can still play.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. Yeah. Well, let's move on to the extra deck. They're pretty standard ratios. 2 App Cologne. A lot of people don't know this, but App Cologne can't be destroyed by battle. So if you sit on this in defense mode,
why are all the Shaddolls so annoying? I don't know. They're all so annoying, you know.
I love it.
Winda can't be destroyed by card effect. It's like this one negates as well, and they all float. Ugh, God, so annoying.
Yeah, but I think Construct or App Cologne's the only extra deck one that's hard once per turn on its effects. On Special Summon, it permanently negates. I negated someone's Crystal Wing with this, and they didn't know it permanently negated. They attempted to use Crystal Wing. When they attacked into my Shaddoll, I flipped it to pop their monster, and they said Crystal Wing negate. I'm like, App Cologne permanently negates. Yeah, it's really good. If it's sent to grave, I've explained this to a lot of my opponents. You add the card from deck or grave back to your hand, and then you pitch one. If you put a card from the extra deck back into the extra, you do not need to pitch. Long story short, it triggers any Shaddoll effect you want or gets you your spells and traps back. It just cycles. Yeah. Most of the time, if you're using Nadir Servant, you're almost always dumping this. I've dumped like Ents like once playing this deck because you go App Cologne, you get Schism. Schism automatically became live because you usually have more stuff to play with. But yeah.
Yep.
We have 2 Construct. Probably the best card in this entire deck other than Winda. Or, well, the extra deck, mainly. Fusion Summoned. Must first be Fusion Summoned. That's not really an issue. You're almost always Fusion Summoning this. Special Summoned. Anyway, it's Foolish Burial for a Shaddoll card. Depends on what you need. I like this deck because it has a lot of utility. You can go Construct, dump like Wendy to set cards if you need board advantage, or like you're just trying not to die. Beast sometimes to draw cards, because a lot of the draws in this deck are really good. Like you're drawing a hand trap or you're drawing like something usable, unless you draw Shaddoll. Even then, you can still poly with them. So this deck doesn't really play any like hard bricks where if you draw it, you just kind of cry. Yeah. You can, on your opponent's turn, summon Construct instead of Winda and just crow their grave. A lot of people don't expect that, and I find it helps a lot. Like, against Sky Striker, I don't make Winda sometimes. I just crow Engage out of their grave.
Yeah, that's pretty good. And they don't get 3 spells either.
Yeah,
so it's really hard for them too, at least.
You can also crow the Ray, which is about the same thing as summoning Winda. Because you summon Winda against Sky Striker, you kill their thing. When the Ray comes back, it can't tag out because you have the Winda on board.
Right. Yeah.
And then we have 2 Winda. I don't know what to say. This card's so stupid. Like, it solos Drytron by itself.
This card's hard for Drytron to out.
Yeah, it's not amazing versus Tri Brigade. You have better resources, in my opinion, because once they get going, Winda's not an issue for them to out. But if you get Winda down before they can revolt, you can't activate revolt under Winda. Because it summons twice.
That's the rule, yeah.
That's the rule. I don't know why it is, yeah. And well, the easiest ways for them to out it are DDL, bounce it back to your hand, but then they're kind of in a weird position if they do that.
Yeah, they need like a lot of extenders to keep playing.
Yeah, and if you summoned it off Schism, you can just Schism next turn. And well, you're like, the Winda just came back and you just bounced it and you just went neg how much of your resource to out the Winda? Yeah. 1 Ints. I debated cutting it. It's still good. it does pop back row, but it's just there for the pop. One of
Yeah, I figure it
Guades.
come up randomly. Yeah,
Yeah,
just comes up randomly.
yeah. We have one of Guades. Literally the OTK machine.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't know this gets really beefy when you so it's an invoked monster. It's with the fusion though, which is really weird because that's not an attribute. But thank you, Konami, for giving me this. I love invoked. I love Aguades. Uh, if you special summon this or a monster is special, it just pops a monster. Any monster, target one monster, destroy it. My favorite thing is
Mm-hmm.
activating invocation with meltdown and then just popping with the Guades the second it comes out and they can't respond to it because it's on resolution.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, because they don't know what you're gonna summon. They're like, is it Makaba? Is it a Guades? And then it has an
Right.
effect where once per turn, banish one fusion monster, and then it eats that fusion monster's attack. So if you banish Construct, this thing goes to 48. You're
Mm-hmm.
3,200 points off lethal. And if you have a Dear Servant, that's game. Because you also pop the
Mm-hmm.
monster. Yeah, really good card. Two Mechaba, pretty self-explanatory. Good card all around. I
Mm-hmm.
usually use it to protect Schism or sometimes negate like key cards. Against Tri-Brigade, this card actually does solo that deck if they don't open a way to Karass. Normal summon, activate effect, Makaba, negate, and banish.
Yeah, it's pretty good against Driver Grade. Pretty
Pretty
annoying
good.
card.
Yeah. I see people put this in attack mode going first. I think that's incorrect. It should be in defense so it doesn't get lightning stormed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even though it has higher attack, but I think defense is correct, so you don't have to manually negate a lightning storm. We have Raijin. It's really good. Quick effect Book of Moon in this format is actually kind of insane. A lot of decks like to use their resources because a lot of decks that are good usually are like link decks right now. So like you want to link off your monsters, you want them in the grave, you don't want them face down on your board. The only deck that wants them face down on the board is probably like anything that can fuse with them. But yeah, the normal
Mm-hmm.
Tri Brigade, you book it, usually can't play unless they have the Karass.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
one Invoker Madness. I never summoned this. It's good, but I found better plays all around. I debated cutting it, but this card gives you access to Alistair if you never drew Invoked.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because you can Shaddoll Fusion, dump Alistair, dump like another Shaddoll, whichever one you want. Shaddoll Fusion is just toolbox. Summon the
Mm-hmm.
Winda. I don't know. You can dump like Hedgehog, add it to your hand. Normal summon the Hedgehog. It's weird. There's a lot of stuff you can do. And then like if you somehow manage to get into this, there's an Alistair engrave, and if you can poly again, uh you can get an invocation. Fun fact, this
Mm-hmm.
thing does not discard for cost. So it does trigger all your Shaddolls. And it's not once per turn either.
That's funny.
This is sometimes in testing, I literally used them to OTK. I think I've spammed down like 4 different invoked names, and I just rammed all of them into my opponent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then we have Artemis. This card's really good. I don't even know what it does. I just know that turning any spellcaster into a light cuts out half the problems with this deck. Because before it was kind of hard to get into Construct because you had to hard draw a light.
Mm-hmm.
This turns everything into a light.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty nice.
Gravity Controller. Um, Almost always want to put your Shaddoll monster in the extra monster zone. I almost lost a duel because I forgot to do that because I'm
Mm-hmm.
not used to putting them there. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
it's also a dark, so it gives you access to Winda. Most of the time, I find myself polying with them for the Winda. He has an effect, but it never came up for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then probably the one card that stitches most of it together, Anaconda. If you do not draw any Shaddoll engine at all, but you have like Alistair plus like Ecclesia or Fleur, and you stalled your opponent long enough, and you manage to make Anaconda, you can use Anaconda to dump Shaddoll Fusion, and you just got your entire Shaddoll engine live.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I noticed there's no
Uh,
Dragoon in here. Did you ever consider Dragoon or?
no, you don't need it. I don't think I've
Okay.
ever once looked and been like, I wish I had a Dragoon right now.
Okay. Okay.
Anaconda is just amazing. Uh, hmm. I debated playing a super poly target with Anaconda because it can make something dark. So you can just super poly with it and something else for Starving Venom.
Mm-hmm.
But I only wanted it like one time and I think I won that duel anyway, so it didn't really matter.
Mm-hmm.
Anaconda just is amazing. Also Shaddoll Fusion is you can only activate one Shaddoll Fusion per turn. That's the card itself, but Anaconda can copy it even after you've activated it because you're copying the effect, you're not copying the card. So,
Yep. Yep. You're activating Anaconda effect, not
yep.
Shaddoll Fusion.
Sadly, Meltdown does not protect Anaconda.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But if you made it to Anaconda, you're probably not getting it hand trapped unless you're like last ditch effort. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, side deck or extra deck was, I think it was perfect. I would have probably just cut the Invoker Madness and played a Phoenix instead.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Onto the side deck. We have 3 Cosmic, good card, quick play, banish. I don't know if there's anything else. Um, Against some matchups like Tri Brigade, I take out the Duster and I just play the Cosmic instead because you want to chain it to the Anti-Spell or Importer. Those are the main cards that shut down your deck. What I've noticed, most
Mm-hmm.
boards this format are not very strong, so you will rip apart most boards with decent
Mm-hmm.
ease if you open two out of the 3 engines. Sometimes one engine's fine because nothing can
Mm-hmm.
negate your poly easily. This format only hand traps can do it. The only deck that makes a spell trap negate is Drytron, but you have a decent Drytron matchup to begin with because you have Super Poly and 2 orange negates usually isn't enough to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But Cosmic's really good. Just Cosmic Anti-Spell, Cosmic Importer. Yeah. Also banishes, so it's good against Sky Striker. Pay 1,000 life points. Cosmic Engage, make them go back a format.
Yep. True. True. True.
True. Yeah. 1 Panker Tops. Uh, I liked it, but I never drew it, so it doesn't matter. We
Yeah. Yeah.
have
I feel it. I like this card too, but
it is a fun card. 3 Nib. Um,
yeah, how is this?
I never considered siding it, like at all. I would have just cut this all together and just played 3 Dark Rulers.
Okay. Interesting.
The card's only good against rogue decks this format, in my opinion. Every meta deck has a way to stop Nib or play around Nib. Drytron can get a negate or just eat the Nib and keep playing.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. This
Yeah,
card's eh.
it is very eh.
Yeah.
But it's also light, so it does have synergy with your deck if you draw it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a chaos deck, but honestly, yeah. Because if you nib Tri Brigade, if they like don't shotgun Appaloosa by 5th and you nib them, they still have Revolt, and like you just traded your nib for like all their Appaloosa negates, but they still have Revolt and follow up, and you just gave them a massive token,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what board you nibbed away. Or they just made the Appaloosa before 5th summon, and it's like, okay, cool, this just sits in my hand. It just trades 1-for-1 with the negate. But yeah, I would
Mm-hmm.
have. Honestly, I just play a Kaiju. It does about the same thing.
Yeah, it's true. Honestly, I've been thinking about playing Kaiju's.
Yeah,
Cards are
Kaiju
not bad.
seem really good this format.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we have 3 Lancia. I think this card's probably the MVP. Works against most decks this format. But
Okay.
it solos Tri Brigade most of the time. Unless they open like all the names, Tri Brigade can't play if you Lancia them. But if I found myself not Lanciaing Tri Brigade if my hand's really good. So in my opening hand, if I open like Shaddoll Fusion, Meltdown, and Lancia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just won't Lancia. I just let them do all their plays. I'll break their board on the follow-up turn. When they try and do anything, then I'll Lancia. And it's like you have to deal with window without being able to banish it with Charade, and you still have to deal with the rest of my board. The only thing I can't do is Schism, but I can drop the window before your turn. So
Mm-hmm.
still really good, yeah. Lancia, I don't think it's really good against Tri Brigade because if you stop Tri Brigade from playing, Shaddoll Fusion sits in your hand. If you let them play a little and then Lancia them, that works too sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, if I open Phantasme Lancia, I'll let them play so I can cycle Phantasme. Phantasme makes this deck so much more consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Lancia is just an overall good card this format. Then we have evenly matched. Um, Honestly, I didn't realize how good this card was until I real because before I wouldn't play evenly matched because of Phantasme, because it conflicts, right? But against Tri
Mm-hmm.
Brigade, Appaloosa is almost never 3200 attack. It's usually 24 or 16. If you special the Phantasme, you draw the evenly, you can keep the evenly, enter battle phase, attack with Phantasme and Appaloosa. They'll usually Charade, banish it, then you just evenly them after that Phantasme is off your board. And well,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
they can't do anything. They literally lost their entire board. Even with Appaloosa, you can play through it because a majority of your plays are also spells.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
or you can just eat all the negates and still keep playing, or just chain block because this deck has a really good time chain blocking your opponent. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, honestly, I would have just cut the pank and just played an extra evenly matched.
Mm-hmm.
Last card, triple tack. Um, Out of all the expensive staples, like well, before Lightning Storm got reprinted, Lightning Storm triple tack droplet, I had all of them. I sold all of them except triple tack. I kept triple tack. This card's amazing. In
Yeah,
this
this card's
deck,
really good.
this card's amazing. Most of the time, your opponents are going to hand trap you so hard game 2 and 3. And even if you don't, if you play against Tri Brigade, triple tack is almost always live because if they charade effect, oh, look, my triple tack's live. You don't have to worry about your opponent drawing a hand trap or anything. Just cards just
Mm-hmm.
live most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And well, drawing two in this deck is actually pretty nice. Unless you draw two Shaddoll names and you just kind of cry. If you draw like an extra hand trap, you have a way to play stop them next turn. If you draw like a Polyspell and a Shaddoll and you have cards in hand, it's good. Like a Nadir Servant. A lot of the cards in this deck are just good. This deck's just a combination of really good cards that synergize well together.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's it. 43
All
cards.
right. Pretty cool. Very good. So we got the Shaddoll Dogmatika Invoked. Yeah, it's really interesting. Yeah, basically every card just feels so powerful in this deck, and they just somehow they synergize together, and it all works,
Just works.
which is pretty cool. Thanks for the deck profile. Do you have any shoutouts you want to give before
Uh,
we end the video?
Shout outs to all my opponents. They all played really well. They were really scary. The Ancient Warrior one in particular, he opened amazing game one. I just went first and I opened better. I basically
Mm-hmm.
traded most of my resources 1 for 1 with him. I had one interruption left. That deck is really scary. Shoutouts to that guy.
Was he playing pure Ancient Warrior or Ancient Warrior Tri
He
Brigade
was
or?
playing Ancient Warrior Tri Brigade.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, interesting deck. Shout out to Bailey. He's the reason I'm playing this. He wanted to play this originally. He played it a
Mm-hmm.
couple times. He bricked. I was like, I'll show you how to play it. So I built it. I played it, and I was like, wait, I'm actually pretty good at this deck. Like, because it has a bunch of random like niche interactions with itself. Like, you can aerial banish your own Alistair if Invocation's engraved to get the Alistair back.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
who knew?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
I've seen that one before. Yeah.
yeah. I love that. It's just so many random interactions that you can do. Like invocation, like normal summoning Alistair, invocation as just a literal hard poly spell, not even summoning
Mm-hmm.
invoked monsters. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then shout outs to Nico. He helped me test this deck. Shout outs to all my friends. Shout outs to UCI. Shout outs to Yishan. Like and subscribe. My
Yes,
favorite
like and
YouTuber.
subscribe. Thank you, thank you. Appreciate it.
Love your deck
Appreciate it.
profiles. Always watch
Yeah,
them.
I love this deck profile too. It's crazy. It's one of the best I've ever done.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks again, Darren, for coming on. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Remember to listen to Darren, like and subscribe, and you too can win a giant card. But I think that's all for now, guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.